day, my fellow people. It's a pleasure to be here once again. I remain my humble self, Muhammad Murnay Kabir. On today's episode, we will be discussing about conflict management using emotional intelligence. If you could recap, in our previous episode, we discussed about human relation. We described on how human beings tend to interrelate with one another. In dealing with human beings, definitely one way or the other, conflict tends to arise. So how will you be able to manage this conflict when it comes in place? And this is why we are going to segregate this into 6 segments for you. The first one is the self-awareness and self-management. This is actually the very crucial stage because this is the stage where you as an individual need to know who you are. How would you be able to maintain your emotional balance? By applying your emotional intelligence. It is a very crucial stage because this is the initial one for you to be able to describe and know yourself. The second one is the understanding. You need to be able to understand the point of view of your fellow individual when you engage into a conflict, because at that stage, that is where you'll be able to pinpoint what he or she made him or her to get into conflict with you. The third one is the ability for you to communicate with respect. When you are being able to understand what that person have said to you, you also need to also communicate back to that person with an utmost respect by explaining yourself exactly what made you to engage into this conflict management. The fourth one is you need to be very empathetic by putting yourself into the situation of that person, because it could be that when you were discussing or when you were engaging into that conflict, you didn't see it from the perspective of that person. So you need to put yourself into considering yourself into that particular person to know how he or she feels at that particular point. The fifth one is you need to be able to have come into an agreement of making a certain decision and how to solve that particular problem. This is also a very key point because this is where you find a solution to that particular problem. After you have all sat down, discussed, shared your like minds, you'll be able now to understand each other and proffer an utmost solution to that particular problem so as not for it to repeat itself. The last but not the least is the feedback stage. The feedback stage, this is where after when you have been able to pinpoint those solutions, you need to also reflect on those certain challenges that made you to get into that particular stage by having some certain feedbacks, which is very, very crucial. In conclusion, I would say that I know that most of you now will be asking, okay, it's not all conflicts that you even have this particular time to be able to solve these all these segments I highlighted. Yes, I know, and that was why I made mention of the self-awareness as the key aspect, because this is where it will describe you to know who exactly you are. You know yourself, you know exactly what makes your emotion get triggered. So on that note, in that certain situations when you find yourself that is a reflex action or something, you should be able to know yourself so that you'll be able to tackle it with good self-management. So that will give you the ability to be able to prosper in advancing on how to manage conflict. So to wrap it up, I would say that know that this other 5 key segments comes after this first one, because when you don't know who you are, you won't be able to go along with these 5 segments. So these 5 segments should come in afterwards when it's actually an essential or an anxiety stage of you having an issue with somebody. Thank you so much. Meet you at the next episode.